So in our short 10-minute pitch, we're going to begin with a little overview of supply chain planning with Pigment, a current state of what we see today, what you can see with the Pigment platform, and also how that benefits supply chain teams. We're then going to talk about the current state of supply chain with a short quiz with Jan, and then we can also tell you about seeing it yourself, where we're hosting demos at the stand as well. So to begin with an introduction, I'm Will Lawrence. I'm one of the account executives for Pigment, based in the Netherlands, looking after the Benelux region. And we're joined by Jan, who's the managing partner for our leading supply chain integrator, a company called Planadigm. The clicker doesn't seem to be working. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
So to begin with, I'm showing you this slide. It might look familiar to some of you because various versions of this slide have been shown, I think, at many conferences and in many presentations. And the reason we show it today is because still a lot of the same challenges exist for supply chain teams and within organizations. And that is the fact that data sits in various systems around the organization, and that data is ultimately pulled into different Excel spreadsheets across various models in where a lot of manual work is done to effectively create forecasts and to manage some of the core planning processes. But the challenges that this has is it's very disconnected. It can cause potential errors, inefficiencies, and ultimately the business is not able to get the data that it requires in the right time or at an accurate enough cadence. So with Pigment, we allow organizations to effectively move away from this, to be able to integrate all of their data in the organization into a single platform and easily be able to do this through open APIs or various connectors to your source systems. Then once the data is within Pigment, you can manage all of those supply chain planning processes. But not only that, it's a fully integrated platform that also goes across FP&A, strategic finance, HR, and other parts of the business. So ultimately, you have a single source of truth where you're able to effectively plan and pull out the information that's important for your business to improve things like your forecast accuracy and the overall planning in the business. But what makes Pigment unique in comparison to other platforms is the fact that this is really a business user tool. You don't have to rely on IT or external consultants to be able to manage the tool. It's very business user friendly, intuitive, and it means that you can take ownership within your supply chain team to really manage your planning, be able to run scenarios, and get better insights into your data. So in summary, by bringing Pigment into an organization to manage the supply chain planning, typically we see three core things: better access to the data that you need, which gives greater visibility across your supply chain and information into your business. With that, you can therefore forecast with greater confidence and accuracy, which is important for the overall organization. And lastly is this keeping up with the pace of change. There's obviously lots of external things going on in the world, but also internal things in your business. And with Excel spreadsheets, it can be quite rigid and not easily to keep up with that change. But ultimately, with a platform like Pigment, you can be agile and flexible to be able to incorporate those changes and therefore be able to plan more effectively moving forward. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Jan, who's going to start off with a short quiz.
Yeah, thank you. So not the quiz first, but we do see a lot of actions going on in supply chain. So as a supply chain manager, there's a lot that we need to take into account. So for example, our forecast accuracy, can we improve it? A lot of manual work still in the supply chain done on the Excel files, for example. We do come across a lot of companies that still use a lot of manual labor to update their plans. With all that manual labor, you're not able to do scenario planning, for example, let alone that you can create one plan, create more than one scenario. Then the internal siloed organization. There's not that many organizations that really come up with a plan across the different divisional units from HR, finance, and planning, for example. And I haven't come across that many companies that even extend their supply chains, their visibility to, for example, their top suppliers or even their customers, as mentioned this morning. Besides the internal focus, there are also a lot of external factors now impacting the supply chain. So we had a lot of elections this year. What will the impact be, for example, of the Trump election on our supply chains? The political or the international tensions that are out there. Are we on the brink of a war? And the impact on our supply chains. The aging population, we do see that a lot of people now are retiring, and there's a huge outflux of also supply chain knowledge in organizations. shortages of materials, pricing of materials, energy, staff, a lot of things that we need to cope with in our supply chains. So we have to deal a lot with those changes, and we need to be fast, we need to be resilient. And that is one of the, I want to check with the room here just after lunch to see how resilient we are. So I ask you to raise your hands with each question if you can answer yes. So the first question, one of the things that we need to do to be resilient is the ability to run scenarios. Who in this room can do more than 3 scenarios in a planning cycle? Please raise your hand. Ooh, was even less than I thought. Okay, interesting, interesting. On the visibility of the supply chains, who is extending their supply chain, the visibility of their supply chain, for example, by connecting their top 20 suppliers in your planning process and or tooling to get those early warning signals? Please raise hand. A couple, this time a couple. Not that many, but it is frightening. Okay, and last question. Of course, we want to learn as an organization. Who in this room does add all the assumptions and decisions made in the supply chain process, add that to their planning tool to present, for example, to the board or the management team, and later do analysis to create a learning organization to learn from previous decisions made? Also a couple, but not that many. So there is room, definitely room for improvement here. And we think that based on the process knowledge, it's not only tool knowledge, it's process knowledge, again, with a supporting tool that can provide all those additional features that you need to be resilient those days. So end-to-end visibility of your supply chain in your supplies as well as your customers. This morning the note was made, why not ask your customers instead of forecasting? Give them access to your system and you can. For example, the ability to run a scenario. With just a few clicks you create a few scenarios instead of the copying an Excel file, adjusting parameters, and by 2 or 3 days later you have a new scenario, but it's outdated already. So if you do not trust what I'm saying here, because we think we can add that to your supply chain, see for yourself. We're in the corner with the large screen, so if you do not trust us, see for yourself, come by and have the discussion with us so we can convince you. Thank you.